Okay, cool. We're live. Thank you so much, Ciara, for coming. It is so much fun and exciting to meet someone you've only been talking to over the internet and putting a face to the name and also getting to know you in such an intimate setting and exploring your journey together. So I really
Mhm.
really thank you. And I know it's Monday and Monday is like start of the week and people are
Yeah.
super busy. So I appreciate you making the time. How are you doing today? And how was your weekend slash last week? How are things going?
Yeah, good. Busy all the time.
Yeah.
Lots going on because I have the full-time job, then I have the course that I'm working on, and I'm trying to do AI boyfriends. It's just lots and lots and lots of things. I'm trying to organize myself around and stop jumping from A to B so quickly and try focus.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bit of a tough one for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to that and you're speaking my language because I think before this podcast I just sat down for 15 minutes and I'm like, let me not do anything or talk to anyone or not even I threw my phone in my bag so that it's out of sight, out of mind and there's nothing to distract me. So I
Right.
sat down for 15 minutes and I'm like, I don't know what to do with my brain. Like I'm like, I don't know, with jumping from one topic to another. And so it took a little time. And at the end of the 15 minutes, just when I was going to get into the state of flow, I was like, time up, gotta go, you know? So I totally get it. And I love that you mentioned all those things because I want to know about every single thing. I want to know about your career so far, your day
Mhm,
job, AI boyfriends. Those are, things that I already wanted to ask you about. So
mhm.
let's start with your day job.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, I know you started off in finance and accounting, and you did that for a bit, and then you pivoted into product management, and
Yeah.
then you moved over to no code. That's quite a few pivots. Like, how did you go about that? And what was your experience like in these fields?
Yeah, so I studied accountancy
Hmm.
and went straight from school to do that because I thought, what's the safe career? What's
Yeah,
what's going to pay me some money, even though I didn't really want to do it, but I
yeah,
knew I would get a job.
yeah.
And then I did work in that for over 10 years with a really good salary because accountancy pays really well
Hmm.
and every company needs a finance team. So there's
Yeah,
always jobs.
yeah.
But it's very demanding. It was 60 hours a week sometimes. It was late nights, it was early mornings, and I didn't like the corporate culture either. Like I'm tattooed. I didn't like the way they dressed in the office. I had piercings.
Yeah,
When I told people I was an accountant, they were like, "You don't look like an accountant."
yeah.
Yeah. So I never wanted to stay there, and then I kind of got closer to 30. I think I was around that age, and I thought, I don't actually care about this money anymore.
Mhm.
I hate this career. I hate this job.
Yeah,
I want to do something different with my life. I can't do this forever. It's killing me.
yes.
So then I jumped. I just left that behind, and two founders were starting up a SaaS in the veterinary industry, and it was really early days. They hadn't really got any customers or anything, and I jumped in with them, and I'm
Mm.
still with them now. So I started with them about 7 years ago, right on the bottom, kind of just doing all the admin, all the customer service,
Mm.
reporting, finance stuff, because that was my background.
Yeah.
Um, and I've stayed with them. We've grown. We've got about 12 employees now. We're doing massive amount turnover. We've got way more customers than when we started. Like we're doing really well. And I kind of worked in every department. Like I did QA, I did
Mm.
support, I did UI, I've worked with the devs. And they actually hired, when we got successful, they hired a product manager that had worked in Silicon Valley thinking,
Okay.
this guy's going to take us to the next step. But actually, after about 18 months, they realized he wasn't taking the company in the right direction.
Mm.
And they asked for my advice on how it was going privately. And but I hope he's not listening to this. And he was let go, and they said, "Do you want to step in and take over and run
Mm.
everything for us?" Because they have their own jobs during the day; they don't work in the company. So I don't have the traditional product management experience. I kind of have taught myself and learned everything along the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's how then I transitioned into no code as well, because
Mm.
I work with the devs all the time and
Yeah.
I've learned, I don't know how to code in the syntax, but I know everything around it.
Right.
Like to
Yeah.
get from A to Z to build a product. I've been
Yeah.
there for everything.
Hmm.
So when no code came up, I thought, okay, well, this is good because I don't have to code, but I can still build stuff. And then, of
Yeah.
course, AI came around round, and I was like, oh my god, this is even better. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and that's where I'm at now. That's kind of the
That's,
short version.
that's
Yeah,
amazing. Firstly, I liked that you were like, you did the stable thing for like a decade and around, your late 20s, early 30s. You're like,
yeah,
that's now it might be good money, but if it's not feeding my soul and I have to do this day in, day out for 60 hours, which is majority of your waking hours, that's not worth it.
yeah,
I'm somewhere in the similar boat. Like I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm like, I like the money, let's be honest, I do, but also I want something that's exciting and I want something that really challenges me and makes me go, oh my God, I can't wait to get to work sort of thing. So I feel everyone has that period of
yeah,
second puberty in your adulthood where you're like, oh, okay, do I want to do this day in, day out? Or, is this what I'm settling for? Or is this what I want? So I love that.
yeah,
And so from the sound of it, what it looks like is you organically fell into product management. It wasn't something you
yeah.
decided on intentionally, correct?
100%. I think when I started with the company I'm with now, I don't think I even knew what a product manager was because I hadn't, in the financial kind of departments I'd worked in, I didn't ever cross paths with a product manager. And the first one I met was the guy they hired from Silicon Valley. So I learned a little bit from him being there. And then also, I loved learning things. I loved teaching myself things. You can learn anything, right? Like online.
Yeah.
So if somebody asks me to do something, I'm like, yeah, no problem. Just I can do that.
Yeah.
Like I find it really easy to pick stuff up
Yeah.
and to learn things. So I think um yeah, I was excited then as well that I was going to be moving away from kind of the day-to-day admin and dealing with customers and
Mm.
being in a more of a managerial role, which I hadn't wanted to do before because I thought I don't want to deal with managing people, and that's what a lot of it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's okay, but I do feel like it's a bit of my job's a bit of a political job sometimes. Like I'm between all the departments trying to get them to get along, and customer support and success are saying this is what the customers want, and then the developers are saying we don't want to build that. I
Yeah.
have to be the person who tries to convince them.
Yeah. Does it
We
feel
do.
like it's a parent job where two kids are not getting along and you gotta like create a negotiation between them in a civil manner?
Yeah, exactly that. And that's not something I had experience with, so that's new for me. So it's like it's interesting to do something different.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think are some skills that you picked up during your finance career that have translated into your current role and also the side projects that you're working on?
Hmm, good question. I think with finance, I fell in love with Excel.
Mm,
I would use Excel every day, and now I still use it, and I use it for absolutely everything. Like, and I
mm,
mean everything. Instead of buying an app or like using a Kanban board, I just put everything into Excel, and I taught myself that as well. Macros in it and pivot tables and all the lookups and stuff. That was a skill that I could transfer, and people love hearing that in interviews that you can
they,
do that stuff with Excel. Because most people say, oh, yeah, I can use Excel, I can use the sum function. But when you go in and you say, oh, I can do all this stuff and I can build stuff in Excel, people are like, oh, okay, she's good. Like it's kind of like a cheat code in interviews, I think. People love it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
So,
I've
um,
experienced that too because I love pivot tables. Those are my like I don't know macros, I'll tell you that, but I taught myself pivot tables because there was a point where I was doing a lot of data work for marketing and sales,
mhm.
and that it was my best friend. Like I would make pivot tables of pivot tables to figure stuff out, and it was so much fun.
Yeah. So I guess that's one of the main things I brought carried through with me. I guess it's more of a practical skill.
Mm.
Um, God, I don't know what else.
I
A lot
also
of
find that people in the finance department or finance industry are very meticulous and they're very detail oriented. Do you find that too?
yeah, I guess I never thought of that because I think that's who I am as a person anyway, and maybe I didn't take that from necessarily my finance career. That's just who I am. I am detail oriented. I am meticulous, and but yeah, I do have a definitely good eye for detail. So when I worked in QA, the devs would often say nothing's getting past her because like they'd say if there's something that really important needs to be tested, give it to Ciara because she won't miss. If there's a dot missed off an I, she'll find it. Like so.
That's pretty good. And that's also like helps in a lot of different like QA was I'm sure you never thought that it was a career path where this would come into a play or this particular skill would be
Mhm.
helpful. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. And also to hear that from devs that, it's getting past her. That's kind of a medal. I will wear that as a medal of honor. You know? You gotta be careful of me. I love that. That's awesome. And also, I did a little bit of stalking on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And when I did see you mention that you pivoted to product management to embrace more of your creative side. Now, I particularly myself haven't done product management, but my perception of it is that it is very technical. So, am I wrong to assume that, or can you give me a rundown of what a day to day as a product manager looks like?
No, you're not wrong to assume that. And first off, I'll say that that line is kind of a little bit of LinkedIn fluff that I put in there because I did leave accountancy to pursue something more creative and I ended up in product management. So that's the line I put on LinkedIn. But the part of when I get to be creative in the role I'm in is when I work with the front end devs. I do a lot of the design and the UI stuff. And because I did study that also, I studied creative digital media
Mm-hmm.
way back in the day. So I'm familiar with Figma and different programs. So I get to wear all the hats. Sometimes we outsource stuff, but if something comes up, I'll say, "Can I have a shot of it?" And the founders are delighted because they don't have to pay extra like for hiring somebody. Yeah, I just like trying new things. I like, I'm
Yeah. That's
yeah,
wonderful. And I think I relate to that because I'm very curious myself. And I see that you are a very curious individual and you like trying new things and teaching yourself stuff. I think for people like us, we are in a candy shop right now
yeah,
because of all the no code AI tools that are coming out there. It's
yeah,
almost like I don't need to depend on anyone else to see an idea of mine become reality. It
yeah,
might not be perfect, but it is good enough for me to take to people and say, hey, what do you think about this?
yeah. Like it's all at your fingertips now. Anything you want to build, any idea you've had in your head previously, if you have the ambition or the motivation, you can definitely get online, learn things, build things. And like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can
Mm,
build a version of it and talk to people and see, is
yeah,
this going to work? How can I improve it? Whatever. But yeah, it's a wild time at the moment, I think, with
that
AI and where it's going.
that
Yeah,
is
I find it really exciting.
yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think is the downside of it? Like, for example, the upside is very clear that I don't have to depend on anyone and I can
Yeah.
build my own stuff. But having worked with devs, is
Yeah.
there some sort of accountability with devs that you miss out when you're doing your no code because there's no one else in the process or in the equation? Is there a downside there? What do you think the disadvantages?
I guess there is that if you're working alone, there's nobody to kind of bounce things off, but you can I just bounce things off ChatGPT. Like that is the other person. That's the assistant. I
Yeah,
think the main downside is there's too many things coming out, too many tools, too many new products. I can't stay focused long enough on
yeah,
one thing to learn it fully. I like
Yeah.
learn it to 75%, and then I'm like, next shiny object. Let me jump onto that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was smiling because you at least reached 75%. I'm like 50%. I bought the cursor course and
Hmm.
this is great, and I started building, and I got to a point where I think the terminal connection got snapped, and then I couldn't figure out how to reconnect it. That's one
Right.
thing. I was watching the tutorial and I'm like, I can follow it as long as it's exactly,
Okay. Yeah.
it's little different, even like by a dot. I'm just like, I don't know. So
Yeah.
that happened, and then by then Replit was out, and then Bolt AI was out, and I was like, oh, then why am I doing this course? It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a struggle, right? And I know you're also very vocal about being. Am I pronouncing this right? Autistic, but also ADHD with like and an introvert, correct? Or is
Yes,
there a
correct.
better way to say it?
I mean, it goes for the short phrase is ADHD. People know it by, but
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
ADHD. Okay.
yeah. I mean, that doesn't help because I already, with the ADHD, suffer from time blindness. So
Mm,
I can hyper focus on, say, Bolt came out. I might use that for like 6 hours, and then my girlfriend will come along and she'll say, have you eaten any food, drank any water, or even used the toilet today? And then I'll be like, no, I haven't moved. And I'll try get up and I'll be so stiff because I've just been sitting so still, just like
yeah.
going for it. Yeah. So it can affect me if I'm not careful
Yeah.
and manage my time and manage my day. I can just get carried away completely with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because when I thought of like ADHD, I thought it would be very similar to because I haven't been diagnosed, but I have a very strong feeling that I do have ADHD because I can't focus on one thing more than like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It's a struggle. Like when I really like have to focus, it's really bad. So I thought it's someone who can't focus like me and has to keep jumping in order to keep your mind stimulated. Like even if
It
I have to
can be.
okay. Okay.
It
So
can
it's
be. There's inattentive and there's an attentive one. There's three different types, or you can have a mixed type. So how do you manage time? Are you okay with time management or
I pull through.
yeah?
That's all I'm saying. Like, it's not like I'm great at it. I try. I've tried time blocking. I have tried like my to-do list. I love crossing things off my to-do list,
Because it
right?
gives you a dopamine hit.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes I do the task and then I add it to my to-do list just
Yes.
to cross it off.
Okay, I think you might be neurodiverse. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but
Yeah, I know. I'm like, there's something like I need to figure it out, but I haven't gotten the time. I haven't gotten around to it. But with like these, tendencies, did you first of all get like a medical diagnosis, or was like, was it a self-diagnosis like me, or like how did you figure that out? And also, how do you manage to not let it affect your work when you have so many different projects going on?
so I got an official diagnosis just maybe I was 31 or 32 around that age. And
Hmm.
before that, I'd been to the doctor or a different therapist saying, I think there's something wrong. I don't know. Something isn't right. And I just kept saying something's not right. And they would assess me for all different things, like bipolar and stuff and that. I was like, that doesn't feel right. That's like a psychiatric illness. And they
Yeah.
wanted to medicate me for that with lithium and everything. I was like, no, I don't want that. That's not right. So I was
Yeah.
going through years of this and kind of suffering a bit with my mental health because of it, because I knew something was different. And eventually, I think I saw a documentary about autism and ADHD, and I thought, oh, okay. I thought that was like something that little boys had. They throw a tantrum in the shop.
Yeah, yeah,
Little
yeah.
boys are hyper or whatever. I hadn't really related it to myself. So I booked in a private assessment, and two doctors, a psychologist and a speech therapist, came to my home for half a day and they stay with you for half a day and they assess you in the house because there's no diagnostics, like there's no blood test, there's no scan they can do. They have to test you behaviorally. So they came and spent time with me, and they do have a standard set of questions, and they get you to do different jigsaws and games with them and stuff as well as part of it. And then you talk through a lot of stuff. And at the end, they were like, yes, you're ASD1, you're neurodiverse. We can tell you that straight away.
The fact that you tried to seek help, but like for so long, like people couldn't figure out. And
Yeah.
then you watched that's such an unlikely source for, you to
Mhm.
get the idea that this might be the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it makes mental health topics
Hmm.
so like a lot more challenging, I feel,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because as you said, there's no blood test. And ever since finding out, how have you gone about managing it? Are there separate practices that they recommend you do? Or have you figured out your own mechanisms of, making sure that it doesn't affect your work?
I guess I'd always had I'd always had things in place that I didn't realize why I had them in place, like for time management and time blindness. I always showed up to places early because I knew like I was always way ahead of time, or I'll always keep my keys and my wallet in a very specific place so I don't lose them. Or I've always had things set, all these little rules for myself, but that didn't help either because it kind of made me quite anxious and uptight, like living with all these rules. So when I did find out that there was a reason, it was quite a relief. It was like, oh, okay, everything's starting to make sense. And it took a while to get used to the diagnosis because as well I was like, oh, maybe they got it wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm not. I've lived 33 years without this diagnosis. You go through different phases. But
right.
yeah, so I think because I got the diagnosis, I was able to relax a little more, and that itself just helped me ease up on myself a little bit and not think there's something wrong or I'm stupid or,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally feel that. And it's also like you have that question hanging over your head, and then you start wondering, is it because I have something that needs to be treated, or am I just like this? I'm beyond
Yeah.
help. Like, there's that thing that causes a lot of anxiety when you're working, right? Or just going about your day.
Yeah.
So, you hit a very good point. This is slightly off topic, but have you watched Big Bang Theory?
I have seen some of it. My mum loves it.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna add, like, I definitely think Sheldon, the main character, is
Hmm.
autistic. Like, I feel like the way they've portrayed him, and it's so surprising to me that none of his friends throughout that whole show were able to figure out that he might have, an issue. They just always brand him as weird. Like, oh, you're,
Yeah. I
yeah,
wonder. Yeah, I wonder, do they do that on purpose, like the writers? Did they purposely not want to label him and do it for the joke, like that somehow the autistic person's funny, but we don't want to say there, like we can play on their word quirks instead. I don't know, but yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know. I don't know. Maybe they used it as a shtick, like, it's like
yeah,
the
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that's what it is. But anyway, I'm not going to get us carried away.
yeah,
Really, this was a very interesting topic for me to talk about because you're so vocal about it, and not a lot of people are vocal about it. They don't
yeah.
like go out there and talk about it, or even like put it up on their profile. They often just suffer with the anxiety alone, and they don't seek
Mhm.
help. So that it's
Yeah,
very inspiring to see you talk about it and also like share your experiences. So thank you for that. But I think we got pulled into this topic because we were talking about how there are new things coming up every day in
yeah,
AI, and you kind of feel you also feel very excited, but you also at one point start feeling very inundated. And this happens to me where I'm like, if I don't keep up, I am going to become irrelevant in, may it be the job market, may it be the startup market, whatever it is. And so I need to learn every single thing, or I need to know a little bit of everything, just enough to be dangerous. And
yeah,
that's only going to get worse, I feel, as AI progresses. Um,
yeah.
How do you deal with that? Or do you even deal with that? Or you're like, look, there's only this much we can do?
Yeah, that's a good question. You saying you think it's going to get more difficult. I think maybe I'm just being optimistic. I'm hoping it's going to get easier for us, that the
Hmm.
tools are going to do more. Maybe there'll be a bit of a difficult climb and then eventually we'll get there. But I think overall, I think it's going in that direction to make everything easier for everybody.
That makes sense.
I
It's gonna
hope.
be fingers crossed, but that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like they are lowering the barrier, or they
Yeah,
are making the learning curve less steep so
yeah,
that
yeah,
everyone can use it,
exactly.
utilize it. That makes a
Yeah.
lot more sense, and I'm going to adopt that because that makes me feel so much better. Yeah, right? So, yeah, that's true. Okay, so you were talking about working with devs and then getting introduced to no code. Was that because of the 100 days of no code bootcamp, or it was much before that?
That is because of the 100 days. So, what happened was earlier this year,
Mm-hmm.
around March maybe, I thought, I'm going to learn JavaScript. I'm going to teach myself JavaScript. And I've tried it a few times. And it's not that I can't learn it, it's that I don't have the patience to sit and learn a whole language and all the all the syntax. It's not that I don't understand it, it's that it's like, oh my God, there's so much here. When can I start building things?
Yeah.
Anyway, then I thought, and then I was like, I'm going to go on Twitter, just have a look. And I hadn't been on it in years. I had an account, but I hadn't been on it in years. So I just
Mm-hmm.
went back on around April, Max's 100 days, I think of AI he was doing at that stage, not no code, was taking off. So I joined in with that because I'd been loving everything about AI outside of Twitter at that stage. And I got to know everybody involved in that. And then
Mm-hmm.
I took his boot camp separately. So he does 100 days on X Twitter, and you can join in, and that's free for everybody to join in. But then he has a separate paid boot camp for no coding where you can build an MVP in 25 days. And I liked the 100-day kind of cohort so much. I jumped into the paid boot camp, and that's when I really learned a lot about no code and built like a few little apps and stuff from
God.
there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's very exciting. And I totally get the lack of patience because I have that with all tools out there. So I
yeah.
totally get that. Is that what you were building? Was AI boyfriends what you were building in that 100 days of boot camp, or was that something different and AI boyfriends just came about later?
And that was something different. It was people I met through the 100 school were running like a 15-day sprint on Slack for anybody who wanted to come and pick a keyword. Do you know Kat Ryzen and Lee?
Oh, yeah.
They
Build
build the keyword. Yeah. So
keywords.
they were doing that. And I read an article about AI girlfriends actually. And I was thinking of doing an AI girlfriends directory. But then when I looked into it, AI boyfriends is way more lucrative because apparently AI girlfriends and boys tend to spend a very short period of time
Makes
with
sense.
their AI girlfriends, where girls want to have a longer relationship with the boyfriend. And apparently they're spending a lot of money on these AI boyfriends, and they often have years long relationships and are spending hundreds a day, like on messages, like if they've got really, heavy addiction to it. So the money's all in the boyfriends, not the girlfriends. Yeah, so I thought I'll check that keyword out, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
I think I shared at the time the results. I can't remember how it works, what it's called. You probably know more about it than me. Like the ranking of how keywords work.
Oh,
Like
keyword difficulty?
yeah, yeah. And it was like it was really low. It was like one or something, and then there was
Oh, wow.
11,000 search results a day or something for it. It was huge. So I
Yes.
found that, and then I was just like, hey, I'll do this. I'll
Mm.
start. But of course, I've got it about 25% done, like of the
You're
work
on
done.
your way. On your
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense. It's
yeah,
so interesting that AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends, conceptually talking, they're the same thing, right? It's
yeah.
the same thing, but the way both of them are used is so different because
Perfect.
of the gender differences or whatever it is, right? The way those products are used, the duration they're used, and the the whole mindset towards it is different. And I also feel like another reason why AI boyfriends is underrated is because most indie hackers, most developers in the world who are looking to like build their own projects are predominantly men. So
Yeah.
they're obviously going to build products that, make more sense to them. It's harder for them to build AI boyfriends when they're like, what does a girl want? That is question anyway for people. Like, what do girls want? And then to build a product around it is
Yeah.
can be challenging. So that makes sense. And when you say you're like 25% through, have you like spoken to people, been able to like build a prototype, or like do you have a roadmap for it, or not really? You're just taking it at your own pace.
Yeah, I'm really kind of taking it at my pace because I'm focusing on the course at the moment. Like, that's my, the priority at the moment, getting the curriculum done for that,
That makes
that I'm working on. Yeah, I have to kind of prioritize that at the moment. Yeah.
I'm very interested to find out about the course, and I'm very excited. Congratulations on, launching the course. I know we spoke a while before that, and you mentioned that it's coming out. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to see it when it finally launched. But before we move on from this topic, I know recently, even on Twitter, you posted like a Reddit post that talks about a husband probably saying,
Yeah.
my wife is terminally ill and there's not a lot of time left. I would love to have like an AI version of her to talk, right? And both AI boyfriends, AI girlfriends, and this scenario is all about human relationships and how they're going to develop with AI beings. How do you view that? A part of me is a little worried and a little hesitant to have emotional relationships developing with AI, but I also know it's inevitable. It is going to
Yeah.
happen. But I'm like, are there guardrails we can put in place, or are there rules and regulatory framework that can go in? Are you also, as a builder in the space, worried about that? Do you think about that? How do you view it, the whole situation?
Yeah. I mean, completely think, like you said, it's inevitable. And even if we went out and built the most ethical AI virtual person, someone else is going to come along and do something that's not. They're going
Yeah,
to, like, there's going to always be
yeah.
people bringing stuff out. I think they're already doing it. Some companies are already doing some similar stuff. There, yeah. I mean, there's it is divisive, and there's different points of view on it. That it's up to the individual, first of all, and then the other side is, I think they did. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. They did a study somewhere, and it's
Mhm.
like, if men who were previously lonely, if you can solve the problem for them by giving them this tool, like, is that not better than maybe what the outcome might be for them? It's not like you can't befriend every lonely person in the world. Like, we know there's a loneliness epidemic as well, like,
Yeah,
so it's like, is this a better alternative, or is this an alternative, at least offering up like a virtual friend or companion or
yeah,
assistant or whatever? Yeah, it's like,
that's true.
it's going to go that way though, right? So
Yeah.
regardless.
I think in my mind it just opens up a whole can of worms, or like not even can, like it's a whole Pandora box of different questions of like, if that happens and if we are solving loneliness with people. First question, are we really, because they're not forming a relationship with an actual human being? But then my other side of the brain goes like, that's okay. It's not a person, but people form relationships with their pets.
Hmm.
They form relationships with places. So there are all these questions which are so
Yeah.
vague, and there's no right or wrong answer, which is why I'm also looking forward to see how humanity deals with it. But
Hmm.
that's a topic for an entirely different time. But I want to know more about the course and how it is different from the other courses out there, and who are you mainly hoping to help in this
Yeah.
process?
So it is aimed as an on ramp for complete beginners, complete non technical people
Mhm.
who are starting as if they've never even seen a computer before, I guess. Like, what I found from feedback is a lot of the time, a lot of the videos, like the problem you had, either you have to get it exactly right if you don't know everything, because there's so much that goes into coding
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
building a product. So we're going to try take people and again build an MVP within the 2.5 weeks. So right from how to design a product, set up the development environment, build the product using plain English, how to prompt to get the product, and then how to deploy it as well. So really right across the board for non-technical professionals, I'd say it's aimed at.
Got it. So more
Yeah.
contextual knowledge as well that comes before the actual building rather
Mhm.
than jumping straight in. That's awesome. How long is the course for?
I think it's going to be 2.5 weeks, the boot camp. It's
Okay.
just a
Okay.
short, yeah, just a short one, and then if that's successful, we'll do it again after that. I'm sure we'll run it every
That's awesome.
quarter, or every few months, I imagine. Yeah,
How did you come together with the other people who are running the course? Was
yeah.
it through the 100 days of boot camp or just organically on Twitter?
So yes, bit of both. It was because I was doing the boot camp and I got to know the guys who run it, Max and Harold. They had asked me to come back and be kind of a student support in the no code boot camp because they knew I was very helpful and I liked solving problems with people. I would jump on a call with them or I'd get on Slack and help people out to solve issues they were having in the no code boot camp. So I said, yeah, no problem, I'll do that. And then at the same time, I was doing all the posts on X on Twitter about AI development.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, a few of those posts really blew up. And I think Max and Harold saw that and they were interested in taking their bootcamp to the next step from no code to coding with AI and offering that because they see that as the future. So they reached out to me and they said, would you be interested in teaming up and doing this with us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, because they have the education, they know how to teach. And then
Yeah.
I know I know how to write the curriculum, what to teach, but I'm not really a teacher. I don't really know how to teach people to do things, but they know
Mm-hmm.
how to do that because they've done it with other boot camps. So yeah,
Makes
it's a
sense.
nice match.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I know we're at the hour. I have one last question. What was the one blunder and one breakthrough that you
Mhm.
experienced last week because of the name of the show?
Cool. Yes, I know you always do this because I've been watching your previous podcasts. I think this one is relevant because I spent a lot of time on Twitter and it's kind of how everything took off. I kind of made a bit of a blunder on there.
Hmm.
There was a post from a big account, like one of those World of Statistics posts or whatever, and it said, what's the first thing that comes into your mind when you think of Saudi Arabia? And
Okay.
the first thing that comes into my mind is women don't have equal rights in that country. And I replied that and I
Yeah.
put two examples underneath it. I wasn't really thinking, I was just thinking like this is how I feel about it. And of
Yeah.
course that blew up and I had so many Saudi men and women comment underneath it thinking I was American, first of all, saying, your country's no better, and this, that, and the other, and lots of things. I think the worst one was like, you look like a monkey in your profile photo. I just laughed it off. It was fine. So that was kind of a blunder because I looked at my analytics then on my X analytics. I check them every so often. And a week later, I'd looked in and I'd seen that profile views, it's usually USA, UK, and then India are my top three. But for that day, or around those 2 or 3 days, Saudi Arabia was second, and like 3,000 accounts had come to look at my profile because of that one tiny blip I made. Yeah,
Oh,
so I was a blunder because I don't want to be somebody arguing on there causing trouble. I just kind of just didn't think at that moment that
yeah.
okay, everybody's on this, anybody can see this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. And also, I feel like we are like when we are on Twitter, I feel more like we're in a community. So
Yeah,
it's easy to forget that, hey, there's so many people outside of this wall that
yeah,
can also have that access to the same information that people in your community have access to.
yeah,
So
yeah.
That makes sense. That happens to the best of us. What was the breakthrough?
The breakthrough was the cursor videos I put up the other day about the Chrome extensions, because they were the first videos I
Oh,
put
wow.
up. They were the first videos I put up, and previous to that, I'd been like, okay, I've got to get the lighting right. I've got to get a background correct. I've got to learn how to speak properly on camera. And then I had the house to myself one day last week, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit here on the sofa. I won't put my face on the camera, and I'll just talk and I'll do it. And I did it in 10 minutes, and I just posted it. And I was like, okay, that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to be putting like hours into it and like all this thought. Just I can improve as I go. And
Yeah.
like people still liked it.
No, I loved it. I actually bookmarked it and I saved it because that was so valuable. Like I read it up and I was like, and I watched it once and I was like, this is not going to be enough for me. I need to like come back and like rewatch it.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I think you posted something about a prompt, like how to write prompts and what
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. I did that
detail.
too.
Yeah, I loved that one as well because I do that type of a prompt, but it's not as refined as yours. Like with examples, good and bad. I would just say sound like a human, don't use buzzwords, and that's it. But the level
Yeah.
of detail you gave, I feel like that just improves the quality of the response. So that was wonderful. I know I've taken enough of your time. Thank you so, so much for jumping on this. It was wonderful chatting with you, and I learned so much. And I also felt like a lot of the times when you were talking, I was like, this is me. Or like, I think that was wonderful. I loved that. I really felt like, oh, okay, someone who also understands parts of my
Yeah.
experience just like me. So that was wonderful to feel. Wonderful way to start my week.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I was a little apprehensive about coming on because I don't love being on the camera, but I've really enjoyed myself and the time has gone by really quickly. I could easily talk to you for hours, so it's great.
Thank you so much. I will talk for hours if people let me. So I don't know if that's a good thing, but thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing, amazing week ahead. And we will still stay in touch on Twitter. And
Yeah.
that's the pod.
All
That's
right.
the
Thank you.
okay. Bye.